welcome to today's McMaster University Continuing Education Caregiving Essentials webinar, Shaking Up the Health Research by Including Caregiving Partners. I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we reside. McMaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it is located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations, and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. My name is Jennifer, and I'll be your host on behalf of McMaster Continuing Education. Today, I am joined by our facilitators, Donna Thompson and Dr. Andrea Gross. I'd like to introduce Donna Thompson. Donna is a caregiver, author, and educator. She is the author of 2 best-selling books on caregiving, including The Unexpected Journey of Caring. Donna also facilitates our free online for caregivers, Caregiving Essentials, and she is a co-designer and co-instructor of the Family Engagement in Research course, both here at McMaster. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Andrea Gross, who is a postdoctoral fellow at Can Child Center for Childhood Disability Research and the Department of Pediatrics, and assistant professor part-time in the School of Rehabilitation Science at McMaster University. Patient-oriented research and implementation science are foundational to her program of research. Andrea's postdoctoral research focuses on training in family engagement and research. Andrea is one of the co-developers of the Can Child Kids Brain Health Network, McMaster University Continuing Education, Family Engagement and Research course. The course is unique in that it brings families and researchers together in a fully integrated 10-week online course. Since its inception, the course has been co-led by family leaders and researchers. Andrea currently holds a Canadian Institute of Health Research postdoctoral fellowship in patient-oriented research. Donna, I'll hand things over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. I am very excited today to be speaking with my great friend and collaborator in the Family Engagement in Research course, Dr. Andrea Gross. Andrea, I want to begin by asking you to just show a few slides and speak briefly about the course so that then we can get into the really juicy conversation that we want to have about, how we're shaking up research generally and what are our goals as far as incorporating the role of families into both what is researched and how it's researched. So, Andrea, can I ask you to tell us a little bit more about the course, and then we'll begin our conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Donna. It's a pleasure to be here today. So it all started in 2017. I was a PhD student at the time, and there was family partners on my research project, and recognized that we were learning together. I had never received any formal training on how to do family engagement and research. And at the same time, I was working part-time at Kids Brain Health Network at the Family Engagement Coordinator. And that's how I met you, Donna, originally, and yep. Connie Putterman, our other parent partner leader. And you shared that you had never received any training in this. And, we recognized together that there was this need for training for both families and researchers. And this is where the Family Engagement and Research course was born. And so we partnered together, and with McMaster University Continuing Education, we're really grateful for this partnership with McMaster CE to develop and launch a 10-week, 30-hour online course. So it is a micro-credential course, and it includes 30 hours of, our expectation is 30 hours, so approximately 3 hours a week. And there's a group project that students do. So it's it's in partnership too with, it's led by CanChild Center for Childhood Disability Research, and which is a childhood disability research center here at McMaster University, with funding and in partnership with Kids Brain Health Network, which is a national center for excellence, doing child health research across the country. And our goal and our vision from the very beginning was that families and researchers would come together to learn and co-learn together. And we would break down hierarchies and power differentials, and we would start at the same place and have conversation. It's not a didactic course. We wanted from the very beginning for us to learn through doing and through conversations and through building a community. And I think that's what we've done, and what we've heard from graduates of the course. This is a nice family partner testimonial for the course of the impact that I think that highlights what I just said, that I think the course definitely gave me more confidence in how to be engaged as a family partner, because it has also identified and highlighted some ways to do it. So we really are sharing not just why this is important, what are the barriers, but how do we do this together? I learned some actual steps and what it takes to do that. So knowing how to do it gives you the confidence on how to ask for it. And that was really a goal from the very beginning, that we wanted to increase the confidence of both family partners and researchers. I briefly mentioned this, that we felt there was this need for training, and there was really a lack of training. And today there exists a lack of training. We're seeing more training programs evolving. Many are self-paced. There are some synchronous training programs online. And by that, I mean that we meet in a session like today and work together through the content. But there's still a huge gap in terms of offering training to both family partners and researchers in how to do research together. Our overall course goals, and it's interesting, over the last 5 years, if I reflect back, the course hasn't actually changed that much. We've changed a few, readings as new literature emerges, and but the learning objectives and the course goals have stayed the same. And so it still rings true today that this is our goal, and this is what we're achieving, is that at the end of the course, we want the family members and researchers to be invested in contributing to and ready to engage in neurodevelopment and child health research, to be knowledgeable about the research process, and can make informed decisions on how to partner together throughout the entire research process. And when I say that, I really mean from identifying the research question, to recruiting participants, to doing data collection analysis, to disseminating the findings. So what does this look like in terms of partnership throughout all those stages, and capable and confident to do this? This is just a brief overview of our course schedule. And so we really start off the course with getting to know each other, building relationships. Engagement is all about building relationships and building trust amongst each other. So having conversations about, what do we mean? What are our values? Why is it important for both of us? We then, midway through the course, go into kind of the nuts and bolts. Well, how do we find each other? And then once we found each other, how do we work together? What are our roles and responsibilities? And then near the end of the course, we start to getting into some of the more difficult conversations in some way, and challenging, and really trying to dig deep in terms of what are the ethical considerations, and how do we ensure that we're practicing in an ethical way? What are the barriers, and what are the supports and strategies to doing family engagement? And then how do we evaluate it? And where, at the end of the course, where do we go for here? And our goal, like I said before, is that we've built the confidence and people know where to go, that we want to work together. And we provide a supportive community after the course as well, to help broker those relationships and continue to work together. So I've talked about the family engagement and research course till right now. And what you can see here as well, our vision in the beginning was to develop this one course. What we quickly learned was that it was much more than a course. So training was absolutely essential, but there was different types of training that were needed, as well as that there was this community of people that we call champions of family engagement, graduating from the course and who wanted to stay connected, to continue learning, to really be champions out in their own communities and organizations. And so we now call ourselves the Family Engagement Program, and it's this multifaceted program with 3 training courses. We have a wonderful knowledge broker, Rachel Martins, who lays numerous types of different knowledge mobilization activities through webinars and workshops and lots of social media engagement. And then we also do research. So everything that we've done is informed by research in terms of developing the work that we're doing, as well as we're evaluating the program along the way. So we're evaluating the impact of the family engagement and research course, for example, and we're also exploring evaluations of new adaptations. So we've scaled the course to the Netherlands, and that's the UMC pilot cohort, and we're evaluating the impact in a different country. So lots is going on. And this is our last slide. And then we're going to get into conversation. But I think the most important part is that all of this is done in partnership between families and researchers.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was a great overview. And Andrea, how many graduates from the FER course do we have now?
So next week, we will have over 360 graduates of the family engagement course from over 14 different countries.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. We started with an idea, a dream. And I would say that when we sat down together, you, me, Connie and I are family caregivers. And Connie was an experienced parent, who had participated in a lot of research. And she had a TED talk about how it was to be a parent partner, not a parent partner per se, but a frequent participant, getting to know researchers, putting her hand up and saying, I want to better understand my son's diagnosis of autism. And alongside all of this conversation and our real drive to shake up research, to disrupt those static systems that keep research in a silo, in a way apart from families. And I'm talking about all health research. It's behind often, the journals are behind paywalls. I can remember as a young mother with our son who was having a lot of health challenges. And everybody at the hospital kept saying, well, the tests are coming back normal, but he still can't eat. For example, he was being fed through a vein, like he could not eat. So there was clearly something wrong, but no one knew what it was. So I began to ask other parents, have you ever read anything like what's happening to our son? And one mother said, guess what? I figured out how to get a gastroenterology journal, and she sent me photocopies of the research journals through the mail, because this was before the internet. And I went, oh my gosh, there's a researcher in California who's describing my Nicholas. And I called him, I picked up the phone and I called him, Dr. Carlo Di Lorenzo, and he answered my call. And he said, I know what's the matter with your son. Imagine.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So that was my first, that's my first, why am I passionate about families engaging in research? Because I think we can find answers to rare problems, but I think we can really influence our healthcare experiences, and we can make our healthcare experiences better for patients and families. At the end of the day, this is one important way I think we can do that. So it's not just in child health. We happen to be working in the area of child health, but I'm hoping somebody will approach me and say, would you like to be a family partner on aging and dementia research? Because my mom had dementia for the last about 10 years of her life. So I think there is this application broadly. And Andrea, I would love to hear your origin story. So I've just told mine, but what was it originally that ever drew you to this work?
Yeah, thanks so much, Donna, for sharing that story. I remember that story, and just before I share mine, when in the course we talk about this, and family partners be like, I would never think that I could email or call a researcher, right? And absolutely, I I would love if somebody contacted me and were like, I'm really interested in terms of your research. This could have an impact, for our family. Can we talk more? And I think a lot of researchers love that. Like, there's a reason why we're doing research. We want it to have an impact at the end of the day. We don't want it to sit in a publication behind a paywall, which isn't useful to people and can't make that impact. So I think that connects to the reason of why I do this type of research as well. When I started at CanChild, I did my PhD there with Dr. Peter Rosenbaum. And I started in 2012, and families have always been engaged at CanChild. So actually it was a parent who named CanChild. So I just say, like, family partnership is through the blood and the veins and the bones of CanChild, right? People there believe in it and value it. And so at the time we weren't studying it, and we weren't necessarily calling it, patient-oriented research or family engagement and research, but we were doing it. And my master's thesis before I came to CanChild was on a swim program for children with autism and young children, ages 3 with developmental delay. And I was looking at, the perceptions of parents and caregivers of the impact of swimming on their children. But parents and caregivers weren't involved in designing my research study or involved in that way. They were, in the traditional sense, participants, right? I would interview them. And I realized afterwards, though, how I could have changed that up, and what would have been the difference if families were involved in the very beginning and, helping. I collected a lot of data, probably more data than I needed to collect too, right? And so I think that, what I learned from them was what was impactful and meaningful. And so when I came to CanChild, I really wanted to work with families from the very beginning. And, I was going to be doing my PhD, study something that was important and meaningful to them. And I remember at the time, I didn't necessarily know what that was. I knew I was interested in working with families. I knew I was interested in childhood disability, but what the research question or the area, I didn't know. I wanted to find out from people what was meaningful to them. And I read a paper by Dr. Rosenbaum called "The F Words in Childhood Disability. I Swear This Is How We Should Think." And that paper was talking about child health and development, and we should be looking at what children can do. So the F words are functioning, fitness, family, fun, friends, and future. And this paper resonated with me. I said, yes, this is it. I want this paper. I want this idea to get out to families. And it was kind of at the same time, a parent contacted Peter and said, I found your paper. I want to learn more. I love this idea. I want to share this with healthcare. And that's where that first connection started. And then, as a group, we started talking together. Well, could that be our goal? Could we work together to try and get these to families? And then at the same time, another parent was in a clinical visit, learned about the efforts and said, yes, I love this idea. I want to get this out to families. And then, well, do you want to work with us to see how we might be able to do this? And then another parent who was on her Peter talk in Nova Scotia and blogged about it. And I saw this blog, And I saw this was resonating with families, and just like it was resonating with us as researchers. And so we partnered together to, explore how we could share the efforts and move the efforts to practice and really reach families. And that's where my origin story, or, really where I started to do family partnership and research and really see the value and the impact. And I have never, I don't want to do research in any other way.
Yeah, it's just amazing, isn't it, when I'm reflecting on hearing you talk about, Peter Rosenbaum's work and the F words and everything. I think at the heart of family engagement in research is really the fundamental question of what matters to us as families. What matters most? The F words as a framework of how to maximize the humanity of your child. When everybody says your child is not normal, here's a long list of everything that's wrong, health-wise and physically and cognitively or whatever it is. It's, the traditional conception of disability is a medical model and is a deficit-based model. So as soon as you get a diagnosis of cancer, Parkinson's, or whatever, you become, that diagnosis. And it's a struggle to figure out, okay, what matters now to me, my family, my loved one who has either a disease or a disability, and how can we maximize our good life together, given the givens of disability or illness or whatever the health challenge might be. I think the F words is such a great example of how love can be embedded into a framework for living, that it's like eat, pray, love, right? Or something like that, that is just about, here's how to live your life. And it's based on what matters most to you,
Absolutely.
to your family, to your child. And everybody gets to fill in the F words framework. In fact, you know what? When I speak to caregiving groups of all different kinds, muscular sclerosis, Parkinson's, stroke, cancer, whatever it is, and I'm usually I offer, here's some tools to put in your toolbox of how to organize your life, to live a good life in the presence of health challenges with someone in your family. And one of the tools I offer is that F words template. And what I love about it is, again, this is about flattening hierarchies. The patient is one person in the family. The caregiver is one person in the family. But there are other people in the family too who are also stakeholders in this project of living. And in order so that everybody can have their say about what they need and want most, what matters to them most, you can fill in an F words template and everybody can put it on the table. And everybody can say, how can I help you reach your goals? How can you help me? Including the person with the health challenges. We can never forget that care is reciprocal and everybody in the family gives and receives care simultaneously. So, I'd love you to just reflect for a minute, Andrea, on sort of how does it feel to be in the FER course? How did it feel at the very beginning? And how has it evolved? How has the conversation evolved from that first cohort? I mean, what's the atmosphere? Can you sort of describe how it feels to be in class?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we started in 2018, fall 2018. And our goal at the time, I don't know if you remember, Donna, was we wanted to train 20 people. We were like, we just spent a year developing this course. And does anybody, are people going to come? And we were amazed, right, that there was such an interest. And so then we're like, oh, we might have to increase our courses a bit, our cohort size, because there's so many people that want to be engaged. And so I think back now, and we're just going to be completing our 13th cohort, and with all these graduates. And some things have changed and some things have stayed the same. I think that one thing that and at the very beginning, we were like, we didn't know how it was going to go. Like, are people going to be willing to break down their walls, be vulnerable in conversation, share what their big, questions are, what their worry or their fears are, both from the family and the researcher side, for being able to do this. And we have a learning activity every week to try and engage in conversation about it. And we have 4 online sessions where we meet sporadically throughout the course. So weeks 1, 4, 6, and 10. So those set up like a really good touch base point, and we'll have conversations. And those are definitely a highlight of the course, and, having to have those face-to-face conversations. So I think those conversations have really not changed that much. We see similar barriers in a way that people are bringing up, and challenges in the conversations that we did in 2018. And so that always puts a light bulb. Why are we seeing the same challenges? Why haven't we overcome some of these challenges yet? And so I'm really curious if, thinking forward, as the next step is, how do we support implementation of best practices of family engagement? I think we're training and we're building capacity, but there's still a lot of organizational barriers to be able to do that. So those conversations haven't changed. But I think that one thing that has changed or evolved is we started off with just putting 2 people in a project group and having to do a knowledge translation tool together. And what we learned was that those would be more, it was such a great opportunity for them to work together. But in research, it's not often only just 2 people, right? There's multiple people. And so we expanded those groups to have 4 people in a group. They meet, we're very good matchmakers for the most part. We like to tell ourselves we are. So we match people up, 2 parent partners, 2 researchers in a group in week 1, and they meet every single week to work on this project together. And what we've heard is that that's one of the best parts of the course, because they're not only are they working on the project, but in their conversations, they're applying what they're learning in the course into that project. So they're really, you can't do a research project in 10 weeks, but you can create an infographic or a short video or co-write a blog piece. And so they're practicing, the tools and the skills that we're giving them there. And then we learned that they're meeting every week synchronously together. And so that was something we didn't expect in the beginning. We thought maybe they would do it more asynchronously on their own time and shared tools and drafts, but that they were taking it upon themselves to meet every single week. And what we heard back was that they would like to do every week. There's a learning activity that they do, and they post on a discussion board, or they have a conversation. They would want to do those together. And so now they do that together, as opposed to providing an individual response. They do a group response to the question, and then they provide an individual peer response later on. And to me, that might seem like a small thing, but to me, that's a big thing, because what they're doing now is they're saying, these conversations, we're collaborating. We want to have a joint response to this. And that's the whole essence, is we want to build those opportunities for this engagement, for this communication and knowledge sharing and exchange. And so I think that if I think in terms of the course, how the conversations have changed, I think in a way, as facilitators, we're still providing a lot of mentorship, but I see there's a lot more peer mentorship happening as well. And they're also learning from each other.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting, because people who are listening today and will be listening later, because we have a YouTube channel for all of the webinars here at Caregiving Essentials, might think that what we're talking about is maybe an advisory role of patients and families. There are lots of patient and family advisory committees, PFACs, at hospitals, and many research projects have patient and family advisory committees just for the project as well. Now, that advisory model, though, is not what we're talking about here. So we are talking about family caregivers being co-investigators alongside with and properly compensated financially for a senior leadership role where people are embedded and colleagues working together, making important decisions. So it's not about, okay, so it's not that the researchers go have the important meeting yesterday, bring it today to a group of family caregivers and say, what do you think? It's not that. No, it isn't. It's more about a deep collaboration, which is not always popular in the research community, which is why we titled today's webinar the way we did, Shaking Up Research. Andrea, can you talk a little bit about the ways in which traditional research is conducted and why this is so disruptive to traditional methods, and how some researchers might push back on this approach?
Yeah, so traditionally in a research project, the researchers would come up with the research question, the research design, the recruitment materials, the data collection methods, the data analysis, how they're going to analyze the data, and then share the findings in publications and presentations, conference presentations. I would say that's the traditional approach, right? And so where families, if you're talking about families, would be participants. So we would recruit out, if I was studying family, well-being and quality of life, I would recruit out and send recruitment posters, maybe through social media or other ways, and say, come participate in this study, let's have an interview. And, there's definitely a role. We need people to participate in studies still. We're not saying that that's wrong. We absolutely need people to participate. And that's one role, but there's a whole additional role. And that's what we're talking about today. And that's partnership. And that's where families, like you said, Donna, are co-investigators or collaborators. There's different levels of partnership. It's not that you have to be a co-investigator of a project. We also recognize that people want to partner in different ways as well. And, so it's a very individualized approach, but that family partners have a say in when it's engagement in research on what are the research questions. And we have conversations at the beginning, like you said, in terms of, identifying what's meaningful. What are the issues that families are facing that there's research needed for, right? We look at, okay, if this is the question, how do we want to answer that question? And families and researchers are bringing different expertise, but equal expertise to that, right? And so researchers may be familiar of some tools and one example I could give is on a project we were on. And, we were looking at family empowerment and parenting confidence and as two of the outcomes. And we identified all these different questionnaires or validated tools, and we shared those with our family partners. And the family partner said, I would not want to complete X tool. This one does not resonate with me, right? And together we work through those tools to see which one was the most meaningful in terms of, or often tools are way too long. And so, or interview guides. And so we work together to decide how we're going to look, what tools we're going to use or what questions we're going to ask in an interview. I think that it would be a great thing to look at my recruitment materials from 10 years ago to my recruitment materials today, and how much those have been informed by family partners in terms of, what content is important to put on there, what would capture the attention, what information is critical for them to know on those recruitment materials. So as you can see, these are just a few examples that throughout those stages, we're working together. We're, from the very beginning. And so one of the things that is essential, and we talk about this in terms of family engagement and research, is communication is essential to doing family engagement and research, right? You must have open, honest, transparent communication, timely communication, right? You can't do engagement and research without working together. You also have to get to know each other first, right? So you have to build those relationships. So sometimes family engagement and research, some researchers might say that takes more time, right? That's a common barrier that we say, it takes more time to do this. And I would absolutely say, you're right. It does take time, right? When you work in any group, it takes more time. But if you work on a research team with X amount of people, and say they're not family partners, that's going to take more time too. More voices takes more time, right? But we see this in the literature, and I also can share from my personal opinion that we go way further together. We have much more impact together. And at the end of the day, maybe it did take more time, but the research is making a difference. It's getting into the hands. It's answering questions that are meaningful to the people that we're trying to reach and help.
Yeah, it's really interesting in terms of thinking about impact, thinking about, in research, we know that the statistic today is that it takes 17 years for between the time when a research study is published and the time when that evidence gets into the water supply of healthcare delivery as sort of best practice, usual best practice. That's 17 years it takes to move research to impact. And I think I can say that Andrea, all of us who are involved in this work feel really passionate about shortening that time frame and using all the tools that we have. So, for example, that's one of the reasons that we're having this conversation here today. How can we inform research with lived experience? Because this isn't about turning family caregivers into researchers. I mean, can you talk about that difference? Can you drill down a bit into how exactly are caregivers using their lived experience to inform both what is researched and how it's researched? You've touched on that a little bit, but what's the difference? So if family caregivers aren't being expected to transform themselves into researchers, so what are we in research then? Like, maybe
that's such a good important conversation to have.
Yeah.
And sometimes a misconception. It's not that, family part, again, it goes back to it's like a team, right? We're bringing equal but unique expertise, right? The researchers are bringing that knowledge of research and how to do, the data analysis, right? And so family partners it's important that family partners have an understanding of the research process, right? And so there's lots of training modules that are being created now to support learning about the research process and like the timeline that it takes, because you have to have an understanding of the steps that are taken.
Yes.
But you don't need to be the researcher, right? And it's same with if we think about, there's usually a statistician on the team that has, spent many years studying statistics and knows all the different statistical methods. And, that was definitely not my forte going through graduate study. And I recognize now that I need to understand what I'm reading, but I don't need to be the one that is that statistician on that team and brings that knowledge. So I think that that's really important. I think that in terms of what family partners are bringing, and if I can think about the work that I've been involved in, or we could talk about the family engagement program, right? This program has been completely co-developed, co-led co-instructed every step of the way by families and researchers, right? Donna, you and I are not even teaching the family engagement research course right now. We have other graduates of the course who are teaching the course. And, you know, every single decision we've made, it's been together. We've brought, what I'm thinking about, research students, what do they need to learn? What are the issues that they're facing? You're bringing the experience of family partners, right? What were the challenges that you face? What tools that we need? We have different backgrounds and experiences, but they're equally important. And so we have a lot of conversations in terms of, the development of the work that we're doing. In terms of, we're evaluating the impact of the course, right? In terms of and we had conversations in the very beginning of, well, what impact do we want it to have? Right? What's our research question, right? How are we going to do this, right? It wasn't that we wanted to just build knowledge. We really wanted to build that confidence. And that's an example, right? And to look at, and we had conversations early on, how would we get it built, and developing questions that might get at that, and also the importance of interviews, right? And now we're co-writing a publication together, right? And we bring different, even our perceptions of how we have different memories of how things occurred too, right?
Yes.
Different perceptions, and now we're interpreting that data together and looking at the data that we've collected and saying, okay, what are we seeing from this data that is important for both families and researchers? And we pick up on different things. And so I think that, at every step, the role of the family partner varies. Same with the researcher, varies depending on what stage, but at every step we're working together and having conversations and deciding. It makes me think about the involvement matrix, which is a tool that comes out of the Netherlands, and what are our roles and responsibilities at the idea stage, at the execution stage while we're doing it, and at the end stage. And we're having those conversations. And I think in the past, sometimes those conversations weren't had, or they weren't transparent, or they were, avoided, right? And we're deciding, and we're thinking about who we are as individuals, and what are our strengths, what are our interests, what are the ways we want to be involved, and, working to our strengths in a collaborative manner to do the research together.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation, I think. Sharon, hi Sharon, has put in the chat, collaboration is a great idea. However, family members can be more emotional with clinical researchers. And it's so interesting that, and sometimes that could be interpreted as a scary thing or a bad thing. But what it made me think of, that comment, was you mentioned that we've also developed relatively new, we're in our second cohort, a leadership academy for people who are graduates of the family engagement in research course, and want to now move ahead into leadership roles, either in institutions or in the community, in a disease association, or whatever, however they see their leadership goals. And we had someone present yesterday, didn't we, Andrea, from Brazil, one of our students, who is a clinician and a scientist, a physiotherapist, I believe she is, Paula. And she was talking in her presentation that she's a very emotional person because she's also the bereaved mother of her little boy who died of leukemia. And she found that experience really changed her relationship with her clients at work in physiotherapy. Mostly she's working with children with cerebral palsy. And she said, now I understand that my emotions are a plus. I feel stronger in my relationships with my clients and in research engagements because I can be emotional. I can be human. I can see that often this is a very emotional series of conversations that are required in the context of research engagement. If we want research impact and we want research to be informed by our most personal, sometimes most painful lived experiences, we need to be emotional. And researchers can be emotional too. I mean, I think one of the things about this kind of collaboration is that it is a mixture of the very deeply personal and project management. And the professional and the personal need to find a way to coexist. So that's one of our huge challenges, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why we really, like the very beginning, we really emphasize that importance of building that relationship and, coming together. Like, we don't even introduce ourselves as, hi, I'm Andrea and I'm a researcher, right? We start the conversation by like saying who we are, what we enjoy. Like we all come with these multiple identities and backgrounds and experiences, right? And recognizing that we're a group of people, right? And I think that, when you're working collaboratively with researchers and family members on a project, the hope is that if you're working on it is time, consuming, that you're equally invested in and have the same vision and goal and dream and passion. So you really are working together. And I agree with you, Donna. I think that there can be emotions on both sides. And I also think that, emotions are a good thing. And we've done a lot of talk about this lately about storytelling, right?
Yes.
And the impact of storytelling and the vulnerability sometimes, right? And, researchers may not be coming with that same extent to, share their personal lives and their vulnerability and, challenge people but we should be sharing like who we are, right? Or some of our peers too, in terms of, the research or whatever it may be. We need to get to know each other as humans. I think that's the most important thing. And that on all the projects that I've been a part of that are doing this, we become friends. We're more
Yes.
than colleagues, right? We really care about each other.
Mhm.
And, we show that in both the little and the big ways, and we're there to support each other. I've had a challenging fall as I'm a researcher there. I'm also a mom to 2 young kids, right?
Yeah.
And, Donna and Connie have been there for me and supported me every single step of that way. And so I agree with you that those emotions and that takes time too, we've been working together for a long time, right? But it's possible and it's doable. And we have, I think we have more tools now out there for people that are new to this journey about, well, how do we build a relationship in the beginning, right? How do we, what conversations should we have if you're not comfortable in this type of environment? And we have some answers for you. We have some tools for you that you could use that if you don't know what questions to ask or what to do. And so those are all on the website and things that we talk about.
Yeah, it's everything we do actually in this work is about how to efficiently and quickly get to relationships of trust and even affection for each other. Because at the end of the day, people want to work with who they know and who they trust and who they like. So in this work, everybody cares like so passionately about a better patient and family experience. And how can we all contribute to that? I would say there is just a beautiful energy in the room when we come together. And we always talk about our personal lives for about 15 minutes of the first 15 minutes of every meeting, because I think we need to do that. Say, how are your kids? How are you? We're just interested in each other. We talk a lot about authentic engagement. And I think this trust and these personal relationships are fundamental to this. I want to also just mention, before and I will mention how people can get involved in a sec. And even if you're sort of very much outside the field of pediatrics, maybe you're wanting to get involved as a family partner or a research partner in an engaged project with family caregivers. We have links we'll share with you in a sec. But I just wanted to talk about, I'm somebody who really loves storytelling, and I've always believed in the power of storytelling to influence politics, influence healthcare, which is obviously so central to my own family, and just influence the world generally. So where can you go? How far can you go in this work? Well, I'll tell you how far. I am with Connie, another caregiver, one of your supervisors of your postdoctoral research on your fellowship, right? I mean,
Absolutely
how
are.
crazy is that? I don't have a PhD. My expertise is my caregiving expertise and my lived experience that I bring to your work. And I want to just use that as an example of, for those listening, if you're a caregiver and you are interested in exploring your story and how it can affect the greater good in the future of healthcare delivery in Canada and beyond, the sky's the limit. What you need to find is a researcher who is willing to walk this path with you, in the understanding that engaged research that is informed by the lived experience of patients and family caregivers, you need to find the like-minded crowd. And so I just want to share some links as well. So in the United States, if people are listening today stateside, there is an organization called PCORI. I can't remember what PCORI stands for. Do you know, Andrea? The patient-centered
Oriented research, something around
institute,
there.
something, PCORI. In Canada, we have the Strategy for Patient-Oriented Research from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, and the SPORE also has provincial entities as well. Andrea, can you describe a little bit about SPORE and what people might find if they go on that website?
Yeah, so if you go, like you said, I think the most helpful, there's support units in every province. So if you're whatever province you're located in, you would contact that SPORE support unit, and they would have a very good understanding of what patient-oriented research is happening in the community, tools and resources to do it, if there's training opportunities. Like our training right now is for pediatric child health and neurodevelopmental disability, but there are more general training that is for, people interested in all areas of health research. So the SPORE support unit, their support unit, they're there to support both researchers and patient partners in doing research together. And they have, champions there and people that are there that can work and answer any questions you may have.
Mm-hmm. Now, if people listening wanted to apply for a place on the course, on the family engagement in research course that we developed at McMaster at CanChild, can you speak a little bit about what the cost of that is and how people would apply?
So we are just finishing our cohort, so we don't have an application up right now. So probably the best way to do that is to look at our website. In April, we usually put up all of the information. The cost varies, and we do have scholarships available. So we're very fortunate to have funding support from Kids Sparing Health Network. So one of our goals is that family and caregivers do not have to pay for the course as well. And, for the first 6 cohorts, it was fully funded in partnership with McMaster CE as well. The one thing about our course at this point is it is focused on family caregivers who are involved or have an interest in neurodevelopmental disability and child health. So it's not broad to all areas of health research, but it's definitely one of our goals is to expand to other areas of health research as well. But I'd be happy, or our members of our team, I'm sure I'd be happy if people are interested in learning more about the program that we offer, or just have questions about patient and family engagement and research in general. We encourage you to reach out to our team at fer@mcmaster.ca.
Yes, and people can always reach out here too at Caregiving Essentials and ask me here as well, or over at the Family Engagement in Research course too. Andrea, thank you so much for coming today and talking about this shared passion that we have. And I just, this is one of my favorite events because we're friends and we're colleagues, and we're just changing the world. It's so great. And caregivers unite, it's awesome. So thank you so much. And back to you, Jen. Thanks.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Andrea. We've learned so much today. And thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar.